Everybody. Maybe I'll do a sound check. Can you hear me okay? Great, thank you. We'll get started maybe in just a minute or so, give folks a few more minutes to show up. Nice to see Patrice here tonight. It's been a while. Hi, Patrice. Patrice is going to be leading a loving kindness retreat out at Common Grounds Retreat Center. Patrice, can you remind us of the dates?
Mute. It will be the 15th through the 18th, but I think there's only a waiting list available right now. But people often waiting lists. People often just something comes up, so if people are interested, they should get on a waiting list now.
Yeah, and Patrice has been doing that every August, so you can plan for next year if it doesn't work out this year. So keep that in mind. And of course, there are many other things going on out at the retreat center, including Shelley and I are leading a Labor Day retreat. I think that's also has a waiting list, but we're also doing Zoom for that. So you can do Zoom for the Labor Day retreat, which is 9 days. Begins the Saturday before Labor Day weekend and ends on Labor Day. In any case, why don't we begin to settle into our sitting posture for tonight, whatever that might look like for each of us. Taking the time to listen to the body, our old friend, having a friendly relationship as we make any last adjustments. And whether we're sitting or standing or walking or lying down, the Buddha encourages us to practice in all the different postures. For our formal meditation practice, not always, but often it's best to be sitting because it's a nice balance between alertness and relaxation. But of course, that's really dependent on your own particular situation, energy level, things like that. But in a sense, we're building a very particular and hopefully beautiful temple for our practice. It's a very personal temple of our meditation posture that is supportive of our intention to be intimate with things just as they are. And just practicing now, we grow roots into what's moving here in the body, the qualities of our heart and mind, what's moving in the mind. And whether the awareness has a wide lens, so aware of the totality of the body or the totality of the moment, or a more narrow lens where the mind is more focused on a particular aspect of what's coming and going in the moment. I want to get to know this very particular muscle, mental muscle we call vitaka, which usually gets translated as connecting. But in a sense, we use thought to direct our attention to the present moment. Even the general thought of this is being known. And that mental muscle of connecting it works well with the mental muscle of sustaining present moment awareness, which is the more receptive quality. So, especially for the first part of the sit tonight, let's really get to know these two qualities, vitaka and vichara, are the Pali words for connecting and sustaining or using thought to direct the attention to the present moment. And then the second quality is sustaining, not forgetting, keeping the present moment in mind in that fresh moment to moment sense. And I encourage you to begin this without using a meditation anchor. So whatever it is that's predominant, or just even the totality of the present moment, as needed, use that muscle that allows the mind to connect. So it's been distracted, and then wisdom remembers, oh yeah, this is being known. It's like this now. So we're remembering to recognize the present moment, whatever that's like. Quickly followed by the mental quality of sustaining, not forgetting, that receptive mental quality that allows whatever the mind is attending to, allows it to reveal itself, allows it to unfold as it is. And if nothing else, for this 30-minute sit, we resolve to learn a little bit more about these two mental qualities of connecting and sustaining. So whatever word we use to refer to these two mental qualities, there really is this particular mental capacity that allows the mind to connect to the present moment, to not be confused by the swirl of what's coming and going, and to have that clear connecting, oh, this is being known. And there is this very distinct quality of sustaining, this receptive quality of mind, of not forgetting. The image that's used in the Buddhist tradition is you strike a bell, and then there's the ongoing resonance of the bell. And the striking of the bell is similar to the connecting, the mind connecting. And then the resonance, the continual listening to the resonance of the bell is a little bit like that sustaining quality of mind. So let's continue in silence for a while, connecting, sustaining. And remember, there's something vivid and fresh when these two mental qualities are working together well, connecting and sustaining. The sustaining has more of a relaxed, receptive quality to it. And the connecting has more of an energetic, alert, even forceful quality to it, cutting through the habit of distraction and wanting to really connect. Oh, it's like this now. But neither of them are conceptual, these two qualities of mind. They don't depend on our thoughts about what we're doing. And of course, for us, the present moment, what we're opening to, it's an embodied experience, a visceral, energetic, embodied experience. And we know that these two qualities of connecting and sustaining, vitaka, vichara, we know they're working well together when the quality of joy, piti, begins to show up in our experience. And here joy is very specific. It's that present moment sense of the activity of the body, the mind, the activity of the present moment happening on its own, kind of frictionless activity or movement, thoughts, sensations, sounds, sights. And that lack of friction, that buzz of life, even you could say, has a quality of delight or joy. But remember, it can be initially very subtle, kind of the absence of things feeling fixed. Sometimes people experience it almost like the quality of the body and the mind is like champagne bubbles. There's a light, vibratory quality. which as the concentration stabilizes will naturally spread, be more and more inclusive of one's whole experience. So remember, it's not so much that you or I are doing the connecting and the sustaining. It's really more about being interested in these natural capacities, these natural mental qualities of connecting and sustaining, that capacity of the mind that can cut through the habit of distraction and superficiality and actually connect. Ah, this is what's being known. And that quality of mind that can sustain interest in that very fresh way. Because whatever is unfolding, it's unfolding in a very dynamic, wild way, actually. So to have sustaining present moment awareness requires a very receptive kind of interest that just allows the moment to unfold, allows the sensations of the body to unfold as they will. And when the two qualities of vitakka, vichara are working well together and have some momentum, connecting and sustaining, then we're going to start feeling some of this joy, this lightness of heart, this sense of everything happening, moving on its own, that is delightful naturally. And we call that joy, the Pali word, piti. Sometimes it's translated as rapture. And it's really good to get to know it, even in its more subtle, quiet forms. Piti has that quality of fullness. We just allow the joy to spill over and fill the totality of the moment. Some people can experience the joy as a kind of quiet brightness, as if the body in a very subtle way were shining, the body and the mind were shiny, shining out in all directions. A warm, each cell, each part of the body and the mind, like a warm smile, generous smile. So just see for these last couple minutes of our sit, if we can keep joy in mind, this quality of piti. Take a little time. Adjust your body as you need to so you're comfortable. And thanks again, everyone, for showing up. Nice to have this time to gather together, reflect on these, I find, really powerful teachings passed down from the Buddha and so many generations of folks before us. And then we get to reflect on them and integrate them into our own way of being in our lives and our formal meditation times, but really meant to be useful all day long. Even these teachings I've been giving recently about concentration practice, which we probably do think of them more in terms of our formal meditation time. And I think this may be the third or the fourth week that I've been reviewing some of the Buddhist teachings on concentration. And tonight I want to talk about the 5 jhanic factors, they're called, but they're just 5 qualities of mind that we tend not to distinguish, and the way it is with any particular skill, when maybe some of you are experts at a particular musical instrument or really good with engineering or been a dog person for decades and know a lot about dogs, you end up with a very specific vocabulary and a very specific sensitivity that other people who don't have that expertise don't have. And so as students of the Buddhist teachings, we're developing a vocabulary and a sensitivity to things that a lot of people don't care about or are oblivious to. And one of them is just these wholesome factors or qualities of the mind that support this samadhi is the Pali word, but it just is that coming together. So the non-fragmentation, the non-distractedness, the non-superficiality of our mind, of our heart. So that coming together away from distraction to a mind that's stable in the present moment, we call that samadhi. And there are 5 distinct qualities that we can get to know, and getting to know them really supports this healing. It's really a deep healing of the body and mind, because what comes with this samadhi, this unification, this gathering of the heart and mind, the coming together of the heart and mind, it really heals all of the pain of fragmentation and superficiality and distractedness. And a lot of that is because coming together means it requires a kind of integration and sort of meeting what's here. We become, necessarily, as samadhi deepens, as the mind becomes more concentrated, it also becomes more sensitive. There's a particular quality I was noticing tonight. I didn't mention it. I will in the talk, but I mentioned the connecting and the sustaining and the joy. But as that joy strengthens and spreads, and we really feel that aliveness and that delight and that, aliveness is a good word, brightness, aliveness, and feel that it spreads so that really it doesn't seem any part of the body and mind not touched. And again, don't always think about these qualities in sort of exaggerated terms. It can be just like I mentioned in the guided sit, like a warm and generous smile, but it's an embodied smile, like every part of the body and mind is that smile, that generous, alive smile. And but that will mature into the 4th quality, sukha. And some of you know that Pali and Sanskrit, these early Indian languages, or Indo-European languages. So sukha is related to the origins of the word sugar, and it's usually translated as happiness. I actually prefer ease, or ease of the heart, because it's, for me, a little bit more descriptive than a more generic term like happiness. But it's real happiness. Bhante Gunaratana, a wonderful Sri Lankan Buddhist monk who's been in the States for many decades and quite old now, but wrote a really wonderful book called 8 Mindful Steps to Happiness. And he says there, normally people associate happiness with excitement. Say, for instance, somebody wins a lot of money in a lottery. That person will express excitement by kissing, hugging, crying, jumping up and down. That person thinks, I'm so happy. But this feeling is not true happiness, it's excitement. When true happiness arises, excitement disappears and you feel relaxed and peaceful. So this is that fourth quality of sukha, that ease of the heart. And there's so much, like I noticed in my practice over the years that whenever my mind was interested in recognizing that quality of the mind, that sukha quality, it was almost like whatever ancient wounds had yet to be resolved, they would kind of present themselves. Just as I was feeling the quality of sukha, that ease of the heart, it was like old patterns of not being loved or, whatever those ancient wounds, or maybe not so ancient for some of us are, they would sort of show up and say, wait a minute, we can't feel ease because of this, and then the memory would be there and the visceral quality that goes with the memory. And part of it isn't, we might think, oh, I can't do this practice until I do years of therapy. But it's really in those moments, it's choosing to be interested in ease and not believing the thought that everything has to be healed or everything has to be perfect before I can be interested in the ease, right? Because we're not saying there aren't those places of unfinished business or wounds or whatever they might be for each of us. We're just saying that it's okay in this moment to be interested in that ease of the heart, even if there's unresolved issues in my heart. I can still be interested in ease. And in being interested in it, it develops, right? Generally for these wholesome qualities, and not just the 5 jhanic factors that we're looking at tonight, but really it's true for all wholesome qualities of mind. The basic food for growing, deepening, widening these wholesome qualities is to recognize them and to keep recognizing them. If you want to be a more generous person, if you want to be a more kind person, a more forgiving person, a more relaxed person, then get really better at recognizing relaxation and keeping it in mind, or recognizing kindness and keeping it in mind. And not only your own kindness, but the kindness in people around you. It's amazingly straightforward about strengthening wholesome qualities. It's really what strengthens wholesome qualities is being interested and sustaining interest in them. Even when we're, in a different kind of mood, and so whatever wholesome quality we're interested in, it's like that's a good time to be interested in those wholesome qualities. Like, I wonder where kindness is now, when we're feeling really irritated. And this is something you want to confirm in your own heart, in your own mind, in your own experience, that this is actually true. It's so empowering to realize that, oh, I can grow and deepen and strengthen wholesome qualities of mind. It's not like I'm destined to have the personality that I have. We can develop our personality, make it, more beautiful by growing the qualities that are worth growing and developing. And by not growing the qualities that are not worthy of growing and developing, by not, like it's like irritation or whatever negative quality is, is deeply conditioned for you. For me, it might be being defensive or being fearful or something like that. And when I keep that in mind, then it's more likely that I identify with it. It's more likely that it gets fed. It gets more the habit of the mind. So with each of these 5, and I'll go through them now so that they'll be familiar. And by the way, here in the chat, I just put in the chat is the normal resource document. You can always find it on the Tuesday night event for in our public calendar. That Google Doc will be there too if you don't want to make a note of it now. But anyway, it has a document that I put together on the 5 jhanic factors. So you can open that up. It has links if you want to donate and other resources that we've been covering these last few weeks with the teachings from Ajahn Chah. So just to start with a review of the 5, so we have connecting, vitaka, and then vichara means to sustain, or initial application, sustained application of mind is another way those two are translated. And then when we have connecting and sustaining, then what starts to come online is this mental quality of rapture. And it's really, I guess you could call it a perception, like the mind has the capacity to perceive the present moment as the free movement of activity, bodily, mental activity. And it's really noticing the natural uninhibitedness of sensation and thought and sound and all the different aspects of the present moment. It's noticing the non-fixed quality of the present moment. And our subjective experience is that of joy, of delight, of rapture, of a bright, bubbly quality. And with being interested in PT, we notice that it spreads. And as it spreads and deepens and widens, then it's a cause for the heart realizing this deeper sense of ease. And it's really an insight, this insight that puts aside restlessness. Because the heart is realizing with contentedness, don't need to go anywhere, don't need things to be different. It's an actual perception of contentment, contentedness, settledness. And our subjective experience sometimes when it's strong is like that the body and mind, every aspect of what I consider to be me is like held in a sort of solid way in the present moment. But it's really that it's kind of a visceral expression of contentedness, not needing things to be different, not needing to go anywhere. And of course, it's very pleasant, this more subtle kind of happiness. And then the 4th, ekaggata, is a one-pointedness. But we, because we tend to associate concentration, meditation as focusing the attention on, a particular thing like a mantra or a prayer or a visual image or the breath or loving kindness is a common concentration technique in our tradition. But here, ekaggata is really pointing to a quality of the mind, another deeper perception, where the mind is perceiving the totality of the present moment. And the thing about connecting, just generally knowing the present moment, being aware of the present moment, is it's, in a sense, by definition, an inclusive experience. So even though we do at times use meditation objects, they can an anchor, it can be quite useful in our practice to like attend to the breath or attend to the body sitting or attend to hearing. With ekaggata, it's this insight, this perception that of the kind of the fruition of that wholeness, the feeling full of joy, feeling that fullness of contentment. Now there's a real sense of of there's nothing outside of this. So the one-pointedness, that word ekaggata gets often translated as one-pointedness, but it's a one point that includes everything. There's nothing outside. There's a kind of a conviction or a sense, a clear sense of that this is the totality. And it's a kind of merging too with that totality. So it's sort of the fruit of that unification. And it's very peaceful. So what initially the quality of pleasure that we experience as the mind is settling is more alive, like what we would call joyful. But as the practice deepens, the happiness gets much more refined in the direction of a deep, deep peace. And each of the 5 qualities are characterized by one of the hindrances going away. And in a way, these 5 wholesome qualities working together is the very definition of the mind getting concentrated. When we talk about meditation, meditative concentration, we're really talking about these 5 qualities of mind being alive and well in the mind. And like I mentioned earlier, to the degree we're aware of them, that's how we strengthen them, and that's how we bring them into balance. And then we know the mind is concentrated, initially at least, because of the absence of wanting. These are the 5 hindrances, the 5 qualities that hinder the stability of present moment awareness. Wanting something hinders the stability of present moment awareness. Not wanting something. So wanting and not wanting, that makes it easy to remember because it's a pair. Too little energy, dullness and sleepiness. Too much energy, restlessness and worry, right? That's a pair. Too much, too little energy. And doubt. And this is the unskillful kind of doubt, right? Because there's a wholesome kind of doubt that, we suspend, a fixed view and we keep an open mind. But this is the kind of doubt that keeps the mind in the conceptual realm, and it doesn't really connect with the present moment, so it can't resolve the doubt. Because we can ask questions on a conceptual level and think about it, but we'll never get an answer because the answer has to do with being connected here and now, not with thinking about it. And so that kind of doubt or skeptical doubt, is the 5th hindrance. So let's go back through the 5 jhanic factors: connecting, sustaining, joy, ease of heart, one-pointedness, the one point that includes everything, the unification, the maturing of the unification maybe. So each of these 5, you'll see how it really does a good job with one of the hindrances. And you might have gotten the sense during the guided meditation that when we're connecting, like in our normal distracted, superficial mind that's flitting about here and there, getting tugged to remember this thing and imagine that thing, and what's Mark talking about, and thinking about what the instructions are. So, and then, oh yeah, I've got that instruction to connect. And it's one teacher from the Thai forest tradition, one of the elders, says it's like putting down that initial pillar of a bridge, and the swift moving waters of a river. And you put the first pillar down in the middle, you establish, oh, this is being known. And it's not so much that that's so hard to do, but because of the mind's identification with distractedness and superficiality and thinking about this and that, the force of connecting, that muscle, that mental muscle of connecting, has to oppose all of that habit energy of distractedness and superficiality and thinking about this and that. There's a lot of momentum, those habits of mind, so that it will feel more forceful. And so you might guess, like, which of those 5 hindrances has to be overcome in order to strengthen that mental muscle of connecting. It's dullness, sleepiness. And there's a really important principle that making the effort to connect helps to resolve sleepiness. Making effort is what makes the mind feel more awake. A lot of times we wrongly think that when I'm sleepy, I mean, clearly, sometimes when we're sleepy, resting is the right medicine. But in a meditative sense, assuming we've gotten enough sleep and we're meditating and there's a lot of dullness, a lot of sleepiness. And this is quite common, especially for those of you who go on retreats or sit more. Even for very experienced meditators, sleepiness is a formidable obstacle for the deepening of meditation. And a lot of times, the meditator is forgetting how to make skillful effort, that more distinct kind of efforting that's helpful. And that effort is usually to connect, to go from superficiality and distractedness to a moment of clear connecting. This is what the mind is knowing. This is what the mind is feeling now. It's this experience being known. Now, you don't need to use those words, but you certainly can use those kind of words in your mind. Sometimes when we use thought will direct the attention. So this is especially useful when there is a lot of discursive thought. Then we can use thought to direct the attention back to the present moment. So when there's a lot of not helpful thought, then using some helpful thought like, oh, this is being known, can be a nice counterweight to the distractedness. And that will connect, that will be part of that connecting energy, that connecting skill, that skill of connecting to the present moment and establishing, momentarily at least, that pillar. In that image, the bridge is the samadhi, but first you need to connect with the present moment to build that bridge. And that sort of clear, excuse me, connecting is in the context of something that's moving, the river. And that's just the activity of the mind and body, the unavoidable movement of the present moment, right? There's something in the present moment that's always going to be moving, and it doesn't have to be a problem. And we don't have to stop it, but we can connect. And then the receptive part comes in, and that's where sort of we're learning not to lose the thread of the present moment by letting it reveal itself. Because the present moment is going to be movement. Thoughts are moving, sounds are moving, sensations are moving, sights are moving. Nothing is static, nothing is staying the same. So in order to sustain present moment awareness, we need that second quality of vichara. So think now, for those who don't know this already, that as I mentioned, we have wanting, not wanting, too little energy, sleepiness, too much energy, restlessness, and skeptical doubt, that kind of conceptual spinning that doesn't go anywhere except to more thinking. These are the 5 hindrances. Each of these 5 qualities helps us suppress or undermine or get rid of one of these hindrances. And that launching energy of connecting with the present moment helps to energize the mind, helps to remove sleepiness and dullness. So what is that more receptive quality of vichara, of sustaining present moment awareness? What hindrance do you think that removes? What's required? Like when you or I, when our mind is sustaining present moment awareness. So like maybe you did that just in terms of working with your body sitting like we were practicing tonight. We're just feeling the visceral experience of, the totality of the body sitting, connect, and then sustaining, not forgetting, keeping this wild movement of sensation in mind. Keep it in mind, keep it in mind, keep it in mind. What does that require the mind to do to keep the body in mind, to keep the breath in mind, to keep hearing in mind, whatever we're sort of using as a way into the present moment? Right? The mind, like to sustain present moment awareness, to not forget, the mind has to abandon sort of being caught up in thoughts, concepts. So it removes doubt from the mind, because when I'm sustaining awareness with the present moment, I'm not thinking about sustaining awareness with the present moment. Like if you're thinking about how can I sustain present moment awareness with the body or with the breath or with hearing or whatever you're using as a support, as a meditative anchor, then you're thinking, and you're on some level, the mind's in doubt, because thinking isn't the sustaining of present moment awareness. We can be aware that there's thinking, but that awareness that there's thinking is going to be complete with the awareness there's a body, and there's hearing, and there's all these different ways that the heart, mind is sensitive, coming and going here in the present moment. So it's said that vichara helps to remove doubt from the mind. And this is something we can directly experiment with. When you find yourself spinning, obsessing about something, what we might call skeptical doubt, just ask yourself, well, what can I do? What can I absorb into? Well, maybe I'll go wash those dishes, and I'll really show up, and I'll just be washing those dishes, and feeling the physicality and the hearing of the water splashing, and you'll see that both can't coexist. You can't sustain awareness of the washing of the dishes and maintain the obsessive drama of whatever you were worrying about or doubting about or spinning about. And you'll just unplug from that little drama that the mind was caught in. That's the best way. Like wanting to stop obsessing about something is not very productive usually. But actually finding something to absorb into for some time can be really helpful. Even something like go petting the cat or go petting the dog for 2 minutes and really showing up for that activity can break the cycle. And the same thing with in a meditative context. When we sustain awareness with the present moment, the mind has to abandon conceptual doubt because they don't coexist. So let's go to the third one now. So with vitakka, which is connecting, it helps to remove sleepiness for the mind. With the receptive quality of vichara, that's sustaining present moment awareness, it helps to remove doubt from the mind, the hindrance of doubt. Now the third one, the joy, piti, rapture, right? What do you think that removes? So when we feel that lightness of heart, that brightness, that sense, and again, you put it into words and it sounds sort of extraordinary, but all of these qualities are going to start in a more ordinary fashion. And then when they get developed, they can then, in moments at least, be quite extraordinary, unusually beautiful experiences, all 5 of these qualities, but especially the qualities of joy and ease of heart and ekaggata, one-pointedness, are especially healing and profound when they're really developed. But initially, they might be quite ordinary. And this is especially important with joy, because remember what I said, the proximate cause for growing, deepening the joy is to be interested in it. And if you're expecting fully formed joy, you're never going to see it. But if you learn to sense the joy in its beginning stages as just a little lightness of heart, a little of that sense of the body-mind being unfixed, more like a flow or a bubbling, a vibratory quality of the body, of our present moment experience, wherever that's perceived in the space of the body and the mind, then we notice it. And we let it, by noticing it, we let it spread and widen and deepen until there's a sense of the whole totality of our present moment experience is, in a sense, touched or affected by that light, bright, alive, free-flowing quality that we call joy. So what do you think it removes? Which of those remaining 5 hindrances. So we still have, what do we have? We have wanting, attachment to desire. We have aversion, not wanting. We already took care of dullness. We have restlessness, and we took care of doubt, right? With the first two. So what does joy help to remove from the mind, from the heart? And you might have guessed that ill will, aversion. Because when the body, heart, remember this is subjectively experienced as a kind of fullness of heart. And fullness of heart, aversion is a narrowness of heart. So when the heart, body, mind is feeling quite full and alive, it's very close to metta, loving kindness. I love this quote from Sharon Salzberg's book, wonderful book on loving kindness. Highly recommend it. Written quite a while ago now, Loving Kindness, The Revolutionary Art of Happiness by Sharon Salzberg. A couple quotes here from early in that book. She writes, completeness and unity constitute our most fundamental nature as living beings. That is true for all of us, no matter how wonderful or terrible our lives have been, no matter how many traumas and scars we may carry from the past, no matter what we have gone through or what we are suffering now, our intrinsic wholeness is always present and we can recognize it. And then a few paragraphs later, she writes, great fullness of being, which we experience as happiness, can also be described as love. To be undivided, unfragmented, to be completely present is to love. To pay attention is to love. And so I find that really useful with this third quality and really into the fourth quality of sukha, this ease of the heart, because it is that fullness and really letting that perception of fullness and aliveness, that spreading of joy throughout the body and mind, really letting that have its effect. And the natural effect of that is the perception of the ease of the heart, a much more profound and deeper kind of happiness. You could call it the happiness of contentedness. That ease, the heart is content. Don't need to be somebody, don't need to go somewhere, don't need to do something. That in this moment, it's okay just to be. And that's the beginning of stillness, of a more profound kind of stillness and peace, which is really the flavor of ekaggata and balance. So the joy, the spreading of joy helps the mind to abandon ill will. So let's reflect then now on the fourth of the jhanic factors, which is this one I just mentioned, this ease of heart, sukha. What hindrance, now there aren't too many left, what hindrance might sukha help to remove from our mind, from our heart when it's active? Right? If we're feeling more and more of that contentment, right? What of those two remaining hindrances might get removed? Restlessness or craving, wanting. And it's restlessness, right? Because I mentioned earlier, like one of the subjective qualities of sukha is that deep relaxation, like something relaxes in the heart that we didn't even realize prior was not relaxed. So there's a kind of spiritual settling, like we deeply, deeply belong in the moment. And that's why it's so emotionally healing to be able to access sukha. It's like on just that basic therapeutic level, there's so much healing that can happen if we train the heart to access these deeper states of concentration. And anybody can, it just takes time, patience, and some instruction, right? And sticking with it, not being intimidated, not by what gets in the way. And really understanding it as a natural development, right? When the mind gets interested in wholesome qualities, it really sets in motion this natural deepening. In a way, and I think it's useful to remember that the heart knows what it's doing. Like just like nature knows what it's doing, like we go from winter to spring, there's nobody telling nature like how to do that. Okay, plants, time to start growing, you know. No, it's embedded. The intelligence of nature and life, and it's just embedded in all of the aspects of life. Just like the genetic material is embedded in all aspects of our body. It's the same with all these spiritual qualities too. They're just there, and pointing out instructions from someone like the Buddha for us, these instructions just help us recognize what's already a natural process. And that actually is the missing ingredient, because we can get stuck in these habits of not recognizing. And that's its own little trap, you know, seeing the negative and getting caught in the negative, but not seeing the positive, not having been told there's something else to recognize in the present moment, like these 5 jhanic factors. So the quality of sukha helps to remove restlessness, and then it becomes obvious the last quality, ekaggata, the one-pointedness that includes all, that unification of the heart and mind, that sense, that profound, peaceful, equanimous sense of wholeness, that sort of maturing of that sense of deep belonging. And it's, you could say, deep safety too. And that removes wanting, because wanting's in a way is the most subtle force in the mind. Like even the desire to be somebody, yeah, it gets really subtle, the desire to exist. And it's not like we have the desire to not exist. That's just another desire. All desire, that's sort of the flavor of ekaggata, is all desire ceases or gets really quiet. So we get to experience this, the heart, the mind, this, but this without desire. And usually all we know, like when we experience life, what it is to be human, we experience it by noticing desire, the desire for this, the desire for that. That's kind of synonymous with being human. It's just that awareness of the various desires that I have, that you have, that's kind of the animating force of life. So when the quality of ekaggata is recognized and developed, we start to recognize something that's a little unworldly for us. And so I would say it's like, of these 5, it's the one that's most clearly a spiritual quality as opposed to a more worldly quality. These other qualities we see in just daily life. But when we get to the last 2 especially, but in particular the last one, that's a more unworldly quality that we recognize. And it's like what it is to have a mind where no desires are active. And that really changes our relationship to desire going forward, because desires are going to get reanimated, when we come back into a more normal, ordinary state of consciousness. But now we just have a lot more space around desire because we've noticed the mind without desire. Oh, and it's so, like, I gave myself my own word for it, I called it, when I had that quality strong in my practice, I call it a heart cave. Because there's a real sense of, like, heart, we feel so centered, so unified, whole, but it just feels so complete in itself that there's no need for desire. The mind can't imagine anything it desires, because the feeling of belonging, of completeness, is so complete that there's no need for the mind to generate a desire. Even the desire for it to continue wouldn't occur to the mind. Because part of the perception of ekaggata is that what we're experiencing is always true. So the desire, like, oh, don't go away, it doesn't correspond with the experience, because the experience is, oh no, this is always true. This peace, this wholeness, this completeness. So those are the 5 jhanic factors. I really like talking about them. I feel like just using them, not always in your practice, but especially for those of you who are more experienced meditators, just to memorize them and to bring them to mind. However you like to meditate, whether you're doing loving kindness practice or mindfulness or breathing or a more open awareness style of meditation practice. But just as you're practicing, just remember the 5 in a real relaxed way. Okay, there's vitakka, that natural skill or capacity to connect. Is the mind remembering? Is the mind recognizing that wholesome quality of connecting with the present moment, that clear, oh, this is how it is. This is what the mind's knowing. And can the mind, does the mind recognize that quality of receptivity, of keeping the present moment in mind, letting the present moment reveal itself in that more receptive way, not forgetting, not forgetting, not forgetting, not forgetting. And can we feel the effect of that, the beginnings of joy, sensing how everything is alive, everything's moving, nothing needs to be held. So there's a sense of the aliveness, which is experienced as joy, which helps the heart really relax into the sense of ease and contentment. Like, oh, this is what I've been looking for, the heart thinks. This is where I've wanted to be. Right? So it's the beginning of that peace. Starts out as a kind of contentment, feeling held, and then just the mind just sort of turns in on itself, that kind of wholeness. And the mind realizes it doesn't need to have desires in terms of sense experience or worldly experience. So we have about 15 minutes. Be nice to hear people's reflections or learnings from your own practice. And of course, any questions from the guided sit and from what I've said, don't be shy. And just generally, any questions about practice that seem relevant here, always appropriate to bring up. Yeah, and you can just go ahead and unmute yourself. Always nice to share your first name. You can share your pronouns if you'd like. I am recording tonight. They won't, the recording won't have your video, but it will have the audio if you speak. So just so you know that, and that will live on our YouTube channel and on Dharma Seed. Yeah, anybody feel like getting us started? What comes to mind? What's your own experience with some of these jhanic factors? Do they seem familiar? What's in the way for you? Like what gets in the way of that settling and deepening? Go ahead, Helen.
Last night, I was watching the news and it put my mind in a bad state. And then I noticed, besides that, I didn't like my neighbor. And then on top of that, I didn't like my boyfriend. I go, okay, something is wrong here. So I know that I just need to relax the mind. So I just went to the breath meditation for maybe 10 minutes and all that just left and went into contentment. So I just love how when the mind gets tight, it doesn't like a lot of things.
Yeah. And of course, Helen has been training their mind for a long, long time. I know Helen. And it's so nice. Now, some of us that may not work because if other people did that who are newer in their practice, there might be greed driving the mind to their practice or aversion, aversion to my mind being aversive. So I'm going to go do my meditation practice. But the key is when we sit down to do our meditation practice, we just have to follow this sort of natural process of connecting, sustaining, interested in the joy, interested in the ease, interested in the stillness, And the natural process will unfold. It's really about not doing what the mind might be inclined to do, which is to be irritated with the boyfriend and irritated with the neighbor and irritated with the news and keep attending to that. But can I get interested in something else without being averse to those other things or without being greedy about the contentment that I'm going to get? Because the deepening of concentration, this aspect of meditation, and meditation isn't just about concentration, but concentration is a really important part of meditation. And it's all about relaxation, right? But it's a relaxation that has a lot of brightness. Normally, we associate relaxation with drowsiness and getting ready to go to sleep. But we can be relaxed and very interested at the same time. And we can see over time how being alert really supports relaxation, and being relaxed really supports alertness. They really work together. And that's what makes the kind of relaxation different, is that it goes hand in hand with this interest, this brightness of mind. Thanks, Helen. Anything else you wanted to share?
No, it's funny how the mind goes negative, then everything starts looking negative.
Right, because when aversion is strong in the mind, then the mind is looking for objects that will reinforce the aversion or irritation, right? And that's why it can jump from one thing to the next, even completely unrelated things, except the one thing that ties them together. I'm averse about the news. I'm averse about my neighbor. I'm averse about this, canker sore in my mouth. I'm averse, it's like endless. This mess in my kitchen sink. We'll just find more things because the predominant thing is the aversion. And that's what the mind is in devotion to, keeping that, because that's our sense of self. I'm averse. And so we're looking for objects that feed that.
I also notice when I'm tight, there's more wanting too. Wanting comes up really strong.
Yeah. And, that's that famous discourse from the Buddha about the second arrow, because when we have the unpleasantness of aversion, the only escape an untrained mind knows is to get something pleasant. So we get very needy, a normal human being, that means all of us, we get very dependent on pleasant sense experience because we're so averse, because we're not in control of our lives, because you can't be in control of life if there's so much uncertainty and insecurity. So we manage the unpleasantness of vulnerability by becoming addicted to sense pleasures. Interesting TV shows, interesting books, interesting food, interesting conversation, interesting massages, and we get dependent because that's the way we manage the unpleasantness of life. Mm. And the Buddha spells this out in such a, I think, profound way.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks so much for doing these Tuesday nights.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad to have you here, Helen. Thanks. Other thoughts people have, other learnings you'd like to share with the group, or questions that are coming to mind? Just go ahead and unmute yourself if you want.
Hi, this is Jessica in St. Paul. She or they pronouns. And I guess my question was, well, I feel like I have a fairly good habit of sort of recognizing contentment, like in all sorts of states of mind, uncomfortable and averse and various things. I like kind of have this built in a sort of habit where there's contentment here as well. Is there any contentment here? Not to go down the rabbit hole, I guess. So I think that's been sort of successful. I guess what I'm sort of it's maybe the one-pointedness is, I guess, where it is, but again, sort of like building a habit towards coming to the sort of point to base of my nose, Satipatthana, and like having this very it's like the habit has grown that like if I just go there, then the body already sort of like has that sort of relaxation, sort of gatheredness, like that's sort of like a little bit of a swaddle. It just feels good to be there, knowing that it's, I'm gonna sort of hold my attention somehow. But I don't know if like where to go from there in terms of like a one-pointedness or like a sort of building that. I mean, again, the sort of the stillness, the swaddledness sort of comes, but like like I guess I'm not sure where to go then.
Yeah, that's an important question because there's I mentioned in the talk, about the importance of remembering that what we're doing is we're remembering, connecting with, and accessing a natural process. So there's really an element of faith here that the mind or the heart knows what it's doing, that there's a natural process that can be trusted. And so at some point, it's really more about getting out of the way than it is about a practitioner doing the right thing. And this is really hard for us because initially, like with the first factor in particular, the connecting factor, there's much more intentionality about it. And the energy has much more of a launching quality to it. Like, yeah, I'm matching the habit of distraction with a greater force of I want to connect to the breath, or I want to connect to what's predominant in the present moment. I want to recognize, oh, it's like this. But for these other qualities, as you get to the more refined qualities, the effort is much, much more subtle. It's really the effort of remembering, the effort of faith, like remembering the faith that there is a natural process that can be recognized and aligned with. And the alignment comes from recognizing and trusting it and abandoning sort of more gross kinds of efforts to make it happen. So it's one way, like if you're finding that you can sense contentment, Jessica, then one way to begin this sort of transition from grosser energy effort to more subtle, refined effort is to just practice with contentment, like really just appreciate. Your job is only to appreciate the contentment, not to do it, not to try to maintain it even, but more the faith that it will get maintained if the mind has a refined interest in it. And the way to have a refined interest is to really appreciate why it feels so good, why it is so healing, why it is so wholesome. Just keeping that in mind. So it's less about trying and more about letting it have its effect, letting the joy have its effect, letting the ease of heart have its effect, letting the unification have its effect all the way along. It takes a lot of faith. And we're so used to being the doer doing something, like even in our meditation practice, it's very much associated, our meditation practice, with being a doer doing something. Now I'm meditating. Now I'm bringing my mind to the present moment. But that grosser kind of efforting very quickly becomes too much and not helpful. And we have to be really nimble in our practice. So, because even if you're an expert meditator, some moments you need that grosser kind of effort. And even if you're a brand new meditator, sometimes you need a very refined effort of trust and relaxation, like trusting the allowing, trusting the relaxing, trusting the letting go, the letting be, trusting the natural process. Even if you're a beginner, sometimes when you're there, that's the right way to make effort. And so we have to remember that a lot of what we're doing is sensing what's the appropriate effort now, what's too much, what's inappropriate, what's just right, what's onward leading, what kind of effort is onward leading, what kind of effort is supporting. And it's a lot of it is trial and error and realizing, oh, I'm over efforting, or oh, I've moved from making the right effort. Now I've relaxed too much and I'm kind of indulging in the moment and the nice qualities in the moment, and I'm not making sufficient I'm not really making any kind of wholesome effort, because I've slipped from wise effort to a kind of indulging in the pleasantness of the moment. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jessica. Time for maybe one more reflection from someone, if there's any other questions or comments from your own practice. Wynn, I noticed Wynn's here tonight. Wynn, do you have anything you want to add to this discussion? Don't feel obliged.
I'm sorry, I was muted. No, I have nothing to add, but I really appreciate the discussion, really clear and useful.
Should we leave it here? Appreciate everyone showing up. It's nice to have our little Zoom community here on Tuesday evenings. So thanks for coming. I'll be leading a day-long retreat on Saturday if you want to join in via Zoom or in person. Half-day retreat on the 3rd of August. So consider those. And I mentioned Patrice doing the loving kindness retreat might be full. You could get on the waiting list. Labor Day retreat and some other retreats coming up in the fall. So you might want to get yourself on our weekly email list so that you're aware of the programs that are coming up. And you can do that by just sending the center an email and asking Gabe to get you on the weekly email list. Or there's a place on our website where you can sign up to get the weekly email with program announcements. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want and just say hello or good night before we all sign off.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.